Captain Leora. Chen's breath caught in her throat as the tactical display confirmed what seemed impossible. 17 massive alien vessels had just emerged from what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself, their hulls gleaming with strange iridescent metals unknown to human science. The HSS Perseverance, humanity's first true deep space warship, drifted silently in Neptune's shadow, its experimental stealth systems rendering it invisible to the approaching armada. "Magnify Sector 7, Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The holographic display zoomed in on the lead vessel, a behemoth that dwarfed the Perseverance by at least 20 times its mass. Lieutenant Commander Wei whistled softly. "Look at those weapon emplacements. They're not even trying to hide their firepower." Dr. Ramirez, the ship's xenotechnology specialist, frantically analyzed the incoming data streams. "Captain, they're broadcasting something. Thousands of different signals across all frequencies." His eyes widened. "I think they're attempting first contact protocols with Earth directly. They don't know we're here." Chen tapped her command console, pulling up the ship's mission parameters. The Perseverance was supposed to be conducting a simple shakedown cruise, testing its revolutionary propulsion and weapons systems far from prying eyes. Instead, they'd become humanity's unwitting first line of defense. "Send a tight beam transmission to command," Chen ordered. "Then prepare battle simulations based on what we're seeing. If these visitors aren't friendly, I want to know exactly how 17-to-1 odds play out." Her hand rested momentarily on the ship's neural interface port, their ace in the hole. "And power up Chimera. We might need her insights sooner than expected." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, their months of training together evident in the seamless coordination. Chen watched as her officers worked, pride momentarily displacing her concern. They represented humanity's finest, a carefully selected team of specialists chosen not just for their technical expertise, but for their ability to think creatively under pressure. "Transmission sent, Captain," reported communications specialist Rivera. "Quantum encrypted, undetectable by conventional means. Command acknowledges receipt, but advises maintaining stealth until further orders." Chen nodded, unsurprised. Earth's United Defense Council would need time to assess the situation and prepare planetary defenses, time the Perseverance could provide by gathering intelligence. "Dr. Ramirez, any progress decoding those transmissions?" Chen asked, moving to the science station. The xenotechnology specialist's dark eyes remained fixed on his holographic displays, fingers dancing across adaptive interfaces. "Partial success, Captain. Their communication structure is elegant, based on mathematical principles rather than linguistic ones." He highlighted a recurring pattern in the data stream. "This sequence appears in every transmission. I believe it's some form of identification or greeting. How long until we have a working translation?" "Chimera is processing now, with her quantum algorithms. Perhaps 2 hours for basic comprehension." Chen nodded and turned to Strategic Officer Wei. "And our combat simulations?" Wei's expression was grim as he manipulated the tactical display. "Not promising, Captain. Even with our advanced weaponry and stealth capabilities, direct confrontation with all 17 vessels simultaneously would be problematic." "Show me options," Chen commanded. The display shifted, highlighting potential scenarios. "If we maintain stealth and target their vessels sequentially, we could potentially neutralize 3, maybe 4 before they pinpoint our location," Wei explained. "After that." He didn't need to finish. After that, the Perseverance would face overwhelming return fire. Chen studied the simulation thoughtfully. "What about their formation weaknesses? Any blind spots we could exploit?" Wei adjusted the display again. "They're maintaining a standard spherical defense formation, but there's something odd about their sensor coverage. These gaps here and here." He indicated several locations with a gesture, suggest either overconfidence or technological limitation. Dr. Ramirez looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting minimal internal security measures in their transmissions. Their encryption is Rudimentary by our standards. Chen's eyes narrowed as pieces began falling into place. "They're not expecting resistance," she murmured. "A species capable of interstellar travel, arriving with overwhelming force, but minimal stealth and security protocols." She straightened, decision made. They'd done this before. The implications hung in the air. These visitors weren't explorers making first contact. They were conquerors who expected an easy submission. "All departments, continue intelligence gathering," Chen ordered. "I want every scrap of data we can extract from those ships. Their capabilities, weaknesses, patterns, everything." She turned to her executive officer. "Commander Adams, prepare a contingency strike plan. If diplomacy fails, I want options that maximize our advantages." As the alien armada moved deeper into the solar system, the Perseverance watched from Neptune's shadow, gathering data and preparing for whatever might come. Earth's fate might well rest on how well they understood their uninvited visitors before revealing themselves. Admiral Zexthal stretched his 4 upper limbs in the ceremonial gesture of satisfaction as his flagship, the Indomitable Will, established high orbit over the blue-green world. The primitive species below had already demonstrated remarkable resilience. Their fragile communications satellites had detected the Concordat fleet, despite minimal stealth protocols being engaged. "Begin standard integration message broadcasts," he commanded, his chidness exoskeleton clicking subtly as he moved to the central viewing platform. "Show me their population centers." The holographic display bloomed with images of Earth's major cities, teeming with life, chaotic and vibrant, in ways that made his compound eyes struggle to process the sensory input. "Fascinating," remarked Science Director Niv Zora, her sensory tentacles waving in excitement. "They've barely achieved rudimentary spaceflight, yet they've developed remarkable diversity in their architectural approaches. Such inefficiency should have doomed them centuries ago." Zextal's mandibles clicked in amusement. The young species always believe they have a choice in joining the Concordat. "Prepare the demonstration team. Nothing excessive, just enough to help them understand their new reality." The Admiral turned his attention to the incoming reports from his sensor officers. Their scans confirmed what the preliminary data had suggested. The species called humans possessed no significant orbital defenses, no warships capable of deep space travel, and no weapons that could threaten a Concordat vessel. Their most advanced technology appeared to be a primitive space station orbiting their world and a handful of rudimentary outposts on their nearby satellite and 4th planet. Another routine integration, he noted to his second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Krell. "Have the cultural assimilation teams begin processing their global communication networks. Standard education protocols. Emphasize the benefits of Concordat membership while downplaying the loss of autonomy." Krell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, indicating acknowledgement. "The consensus suggests this species may have unusually strong resistance to cultural assimilation. Their communications reveal thousands of distinct cultural identities rather than a unified planetary governance." Zexthal dismissed the concern with a flick of his secondary appendage. "Such diversity is common in pre-integration species. Once the leadership accepts our terms, the population follows. It has been thus for 12,000 cycles." On the command deck, Science Director Niv Zora continued her analysis of the human transmissions. Something about their technological development pattern troubled her, though she couldn't quite identify what. Their advancement was uneven, primitive in spaceflight, but surprisingly sophisticated in computational systems and material science. "Admiral," she called, "I recommend caution with this species. Their development trajectory shows anomalous patterns." Zexthal chittered dismissively. "Your concerns are noted, Director, but unnecessary. Our sensors detect no weapons capable of penetrating even our scout vessel's defensive screens. Proceed with standard protocols." Deep in Neptune's shadow, Captain Chen watched the alien armada surround her homeworld. The Perseverance's quantum computers had already decrypted enough of the alien transmissions to understand their intentions. "They're calling themselves the Galactic Concordat," reported communications specialist Rivera, her fingers dancing across adaptive interfaces. "They're offering protection." Her voice hardened, in exchange for complete submission. Chen's eyes narrowed as she studied the alien formation. Despite their overwhelming numerical advantage, they'd left surprising gaps in their defensive screen, gaps that a ship like the Perseverance could potentially exploit. "They're used to being the apex predators," she mused aloud. "Let's see how they respond to a surprise." She turned to her XO. "Commander Adams, plot an intercept course that keeps the moon between us and their main sensors until the last possible moment. It's time to introduce ourselves." Dr. Ramirez looked up from his station, concern evident on his face. "Captain, Shamira's analysis of their transmissions indicates they've done this hundreds of times before. Their integration process follows a standard pattern. Demonstrate overwhelming force, demand submission, then gradually absorb the species into their collective." "How gradual?" Chen asked, her expression hardening. "Based on references in their communications, perhaps 50 to 70 Earth years before complete cultural assimilation. They're patient." Chen stood, decision made. "We don't have the luxury of patience. Alert all stations. We're moving to intercept. Maintain stealth protocols until we reach lunar orbit, then reveal ourselves precisely when their diplomatic shuttle begins descent to Earth." She turned to Wei. Tactical analysis of their flagship. Wei highlighted the massive vessel on the display. Engine output suggests significant mass and power generation capabilities, but their weapon systems are predictable. Energy-based, primarily. No evidence of kinetic weapons or advanced missile systems. "Good," Chen replied, a grim smile forming. "Let's show them something unpredictable then." As the Perseverance's advanced engines hummed to life, propelling the stealth warship toward Earth with minimal energy signatures, Admiral Zexthal remained blissfully unaware that the standard integration he expected was about to become anything but routine. The gleaming diplomatic shuttle descended toward Earth's United Nations complex in Geneva, carrying the first Concordat representatives to set foot on human soil. Inside the Great Assembly Hall, world leaders waited with a mixture of fear, awe, and carefully concealed anger at the aliens' presumptuous protection demands. Without warning, every communication device in the hall, and across the planet, activated simultaneously. A woman's confident voice echoed through the chamber. "This is Captain Leora Chen of the HSS Perseverance. People of Earth, do not surrender your sovereignty. You are not alone." Secretary General Okafor rose from her seat, eyes darting around the chamber as murmurs of confusion spread among the assembled delegates. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded of her aides. "What is the Perseverance?" Before anyone could answer, the massive view screens throughout the hall activated, showing a live feed from orbit. The descending Concordat shuttle suddenly appeared tiny against the backdrop of Earth as a sleek, black vessel materialized seemingly from nowhere, positioning itself directly in the shuttle's path. Aboard the indomitable Will, alarms shrieked as sensors suddenly detected a vessel materializing seemingly from nowhere, positioning itself directly between the Concordat diplomatic shuttle and Earth. "Impossible," barked the sensor officer. "There was nothing there, then." "Full magnification," ordered Admiral Zexthal. The viewing screen revealed a sleek obsidian vessel unlike any the Concordat had cataloged before. Its hull absorbed rather than reflected light, its contours suggesting lethal efficiency rather than intimidating bulk. Most disturbing were the weapon ports, small, precise, and aimed with perfect alignment at the Concordat ship's most vulnerable sectors. "How do they hide an entire warship from our sensors?" demanded Zexthal. Science Director Nivzora's tentacles writhed in agitation. "Unknown technology, Admiral. Their ship appears to be utilizing some form of energy absorption rather than deflection. Our sensors rely on energy reflections to detect objects in space. Recall the diplomatic shuttle immediately," Zexthal ordered. "All vessels, defensive formation Delta, target that ship but hold fire." On the Perseverance's bridge, Captain Chen stood tall as her ship revealed itself to both Earth and the Concordat simultaneously. The neural connection to Chimera fed tactical data directly into her consciousness, giving her unprecedented awareness of the battlefield. All weapons systems online, reported Y. Targeting solutions calculated for each Concordat vessel. Shield penetration probabilities at 87%. Chen nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. Open a channel to their flagship, visual and audio. The main view screen flickered, revealing the alien command center. Chen maintained her composure despite the shock of seeing the insectoid forms of the Concordat leadership for the first time. The Admiral, obvious from his ornate exoskeleton, stood nearly 3 meters tall, compound eyes gleaming with an intelligence that transcended the species barrier. Admiral of the Concordat fleet, you have entered sovereign human space without permission. Your protection is neither requested nor required. Earth is under the defense of the human space fleet. A bold lie. The Perseverance was the only ship of its kind, but Chen delivered it with unwavering conviction. The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly before the translation came through. Human vessel, came the translated reply. Your courage is noted but misplaced. One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against the might of 17 Concordat warships. Chen smiled thinly. Care to test that theory, Admiral? In the UN Assembly Hall, the gathered leaders watched the exchange in stunned silence. Secretary General Okafor turned to the American president and whispered, "Is this true? Do we have a deep space warship?" The president's face remained carefully neutral. The Perseverance project was classified at the highest levels, a collaborative effort between nations, developed in secret to protect Earth from exactly this scenario. Back in orbit, the standoff intensified as the Concordat fleet adjusted its formation, surrounding the Perseverance while maintaining a respectful distance. "They're scanning us," reported Dr. Ramirez, "attempting to penetrate our hull to assess our capabilities." Chen nodded. "Let them look. Chimera, selective data leakage protocol. Show them enough to make them nervous." Through her neural link, Chen felt the ship's eye implementing her order, allowing certain sensor readings to penetrate their stealth systems, carefully curated data that would suggest capabilities beyond what the Perseverance actually possessed. "Admiral," Chen addressed the still-open channel, "your integration protocol is known to us. 317 species have fallen to it before. Earth will not be number 318. She paused deliberately. "We offer a different path. Equal diplomatic relations, or nothing at all." The alien admiral's compound eyes narrowed, mandibles clicking rapidly in what the translation system identified as a sign of agitation. "The Concordat does not negotiate with pre-spacefaring species," he replied. Chen's smile widened slightly. "Then it appears we have reached an impasse. The question is, Admiral, what happens next?" Admiral Sexthal had conquered 14 species during his illustrious career with the Concordat. Never once had he needed to deploy his fleet's full capabilities. A simple demonstration of force was typically sufficient. He gave the order with practiced indifference. Target their natural satellite. Low-yield planetary bombardment, visible from the surface. Energy lanced from one of the smaller Concordat vessels, striking the moon's surface and carving a new crater visible even to the naked eye from Earth. Panic erupted across human communication channels. "Your species now understands the futility of resistance," Zexthal transmitted to the impudent human vessel. "Surrender your—" The transmission cut off as the Admiral watched in disbelief. The human warship had moved with impossible speed, covering the distance to one of his support vessels in seconds rather than minutes. Before anyone could react, something too small for their sensors to properly track, some kind of projectile, pierced the support ship's shields as if they weren't there. Alarms blared as the support vessel lost primary propulsion, artificial gravity, and weapons capability simultaneously. Not a single crew member was harmed, but the warship was effectively neutralized. "What happened?" Zexthal demanded. "Unknown kinetic weapon," reported his tactical officer, voice tinged with fear. It passed through our shields as if they weren't designed to stop it, which they weren't. Our defensive systems are calibrated for energy weapons, not physical projectiles. Impossible, the Admiral hissed. No species would waste resources on primitive projectile weapons when energy weapons are clearly superior. Science Director Niv Zora studied the readings with growing concern. The projectile was accelerated to near relativistic speeds, Admiral. The kinetic energy involved is considerable, and our shields are indeed designed to stop energy attacks, not physical objects. On the Perseverance, Captain Chen watched the Concordat's confused response with grim satisfaction. The ship had just executed a perfect hypervelocity attack. One of the Perseverance's specialized tungsten rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed before launch. Against such a weapon, the aliens' energy shields might as well have been tissue paper. Target neutralized, Captain, reported Y. Clean hit on their propulsion systems. No casualties detected. Chen nodded approvingly. Open a channel to the Admiral. When Zexi Hell's insectoid face appeared on the view screen again, Chen noted the subtle changes in posture that Chimera's translation algorithms identified as surprise and concern. A demonstration in return, Admiral, Chen stated calmly. Your ship is disabled but your crew unharmed. A professional courtesy. Your shields may stop energy weapons, but they're useless against tungsten rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The next one goes through your command center unless you withdraw your offer of protection. The bridge fell silent as they awaited the Admiral's response. Chen knew she was bluffing. The Perseverance couldn't possibly take on all 17 vessels simultaneously, even with their shield vulnerability. But the Admiral didn't know that. You've made your point, human, Zexthal finally responded. But this changes nothing. The Concordat has faced technological surprises before. We adapt. Chen leaned forward slightly. Then adapt to this. Earth will not surrender its sovereignty. We are willing to establish diplomatic relations as equals, but we will not become another of your conquered protectorates. The Admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly, the equivalent of a contemplative frown, according to Chimera's analysis. The Concordat does not recognize single system species as equals, he stated, though with less conviction than before. Then the Concordat will need to evolve, Chen replied. Just as species must adapt to survive, so must empires. She paused, letting her words sink in. We request a 24-hour cessation of hostilities while your leadership considers our proposal. During this time, your fleet will maintain its current position, and no further demonstrations of force will be conducted by either side. On the indomitable will, Admiral Zexthal faced an unprecedented dilemma. Protocol dictated immediate escalation against any species that dared resist integration. Yet the humans had demonstrated technology that challenged Concordat's superiority in ways he hadn't encountered in hundreds of cycles. Very well, he finally agreed. 24 of your hours. I will consult with the Council. But be warned, Captain Chen, if the Council rejects your proposal, the full might of the Concordat will descend upon your world. As the transmission ended, Chen turned to her officers. We fought time, but not much. Dr. Ramirez, continue analyzing their technology. Commander Adams, coordinate with Earth's defense forces. They need to prepare for worst-case scenarios. And Wei, Captain, prepare firing solutions for every Concordat vessel. If diplomacy fails, we need to make our first strikes count. The waiting game had begun. 24 hours to convince an interstellar empire to change policies it had followed for thousands of years, or face extinction. 24 hours of tense standoff followed. The Concordat fleet maintained position, but launched no further attacks. Captain Chen used the time wisely, having Dr. Ramirez and his team analyze every scrap of data they could extract from the alien vessels. It's extraordinary, Ramirez explained, pointing to the holographic comparison he'd compiled. The Concordat mastered faster-than-light travel centuries before we did, but their weapons technology followed a completely different evolutionary path. They developed energy weapons exclusively, powerful but predictable. Wei leaned closer to the display. Because they never faced serious resistance. Look at their formation, textbook overwhelming force positioning. They'd never needed to innovate tactically. Chen nodded slowly. They'd grown complacent. When all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. She turned to Rivera. What about their communications? Any weaknesses we can exploit? Rivera's eyes gleamed. Better than that, Captain. I've decrypted their codices database. They've encountered over 300 species and conquered all but 4. Those 4 are listed as deferred acquisitions at the galaxy's edge. Independent species, Chen murmured. Potential allies. Through her neural link to Chimera, Chen accessed the data directly, processing the information faster than conventional interfaces would allow. The 4 independent species shared no obvious physical or technological similarities, but each had managed to resist Concordat integration. Understanding why could be key to Earth's survival. Any pattern to these independent worlds? She asked. Just one, Rivera replied. According to their records, all 4 species developed unconventional defensive capabilities that made standard integration protocols costly. Chen's expression hardened. Then we need to make ourselves equally costly to conquer. Commander Adams approached with a tablet displaying Earth's rapidly mobilizing defenses. Captain, United Defense Command reports all major powers are coordinating response measures. Prototype planetary shield generators are being deployed at strategic locations. Not enough time to complete coverage, Chen noted grimly. If the Concordat decides on full offensive operations, Earth remains vulnerable. Then we ensure they don't make that decision. Adams responded firmly. Aboard the Indomitable Will, Admiral Zexthal faced an equally enlightening revelation as his analysts completed their assessment of the human vessel. Their technological development is extraordinary, Science Director Niv Zora reported, her usual confidence shaken. They've achieved with a crew of 50 what we do with crews of thousands. Their resource efficiency is disturbing. Explain, the Admiral demanded. The Concordat expanded by harvesting resources from hundreds of worlds, she explained. These humans developed their technology within the confines of a single system. Their constraints bred innovation we never needed. Her sensory tentacles trembled. Their warship can match 3 of ours with a fraction of the resources. If they built a fleet. Impossible, Sub-Admiral Krell interjected. Our scans confirm they possess only this single vessel. They simply haven't had time to build more. Zexthal's compound eyes fixed on the holographic representation of the Perseverance. Perhaps, but their achievement remains impressive. A species that can create such a vessel while confined to one system. What might they accomplish with access to multiple worlds? The question, Niv Zora noted quietly, is whether that potential makes them valuable allies or existential threats. The Admiral chittered thoughtfully. The Council's response was predictable. Humanity must join the Concordat or face extinction. No exceptions. And your assessment, Admiral? Niv Zora pressed. Zexthal paused, an unusual hesitation for a being normally decisive in executing Concordat will. I have overseen 14 integrations. Never have I encountered a species that developed along such divergent lines. Their technological approach is inefficient by our standards, yet effective in ways we never considered. He gestured to the disabled support vessel. They neutralized one of our ships with a single primitive projectile, simply because we never thought to defend against such weapons. Adaptation is required, Niv Zora agreed. But the Council demands adherence to standard protocols. Then we shall adhere, the Admiral decided, while preparing contingencies. Reconfigure all vessel shields to detect and intercept physical projectiles. Analyze human communication patterns for exploitable weaknesses. He paused. And prepare a detailed assessment of their homeworld's resource value to the Concordat. The Council may reconsider extinction if the cost outweighs the gain. As the deadline approached, both sides prepared for the next phase of their encounter, each believing their species superior, each uncertain of the outcome should full-scale conflict erupt. The fate of Earth would be decided not just by weapons and tactics, but by the willingness of two vastly different civilizations to recognize value in the other's existence. The Concordat Council's response was swift and unambiguous. Humanity would join the Concordat, or face extinction. No middle ground was permitted. Admiral Zexthal transmitted their ultimatum to the Perseverance with genuine regret. He had come to respect these humans' ingenuity, if not their stubbornness. You have 12 of your hours to accept our protection. Your planet has no defense against simultaneous bombardment from multiple vectors. One ship, however advanced, cannot protect an entire world. On the Perseverance's bridge, Chen received Earth's unified response with grim satisfaction. Humanity would not kneel. All personnel to battle stations, she ordered. Activate Chimera Protocol. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations stirred to life. Behind Mars, within Saturn's rings, among the asteroids, and in Earth's Lagrange points, sophisticated automated defense platforms awakened, each small, stealthy, and armed with the same shield-penetrating technology as the Perseverance. Dr. Ramirez approached Chen's command chair with a neural interface crown. Chimera is online, Captain. She's awaiting your connection. Chen placed the crown on her head and closed her eyes. Her consciousness expanded as she merged with the ship's quantum AI, gaining simultaneous awareness of every defense platform they'd secretly deployed over the past 5 years. Through the neural link, she felt each platform as an extension of herself. 57 autonomous weapons stations, all hidden using the same stealth technology as the Perseverance, a fraction of a Concordat fleet in numbers, but positioned strategically to target critical systems on each alien vessel. Status report. Chen vocalized, the neural interface translating her thoughts directly to Chimera. Asterisk, all platforms operational at 98.7% efficiency. Asterisk, came the AI's response directly into her mind. Asterisk, strategic targeting solutions calculated for maximum effectiveness against Concordat vessel vulnerabilities. Estimated neutralization capability. 83% of the fleet within the first engagement minute. Asterisk. Not enough for total victory, but enough to force reconsideration. Chen opened her eyes, now gleaming with reflected data streams from the neural interface. Communications. Transmit to Admiral Zexthal. The Perseverance was never meant to fight alone. As the message was sent, Chen addressed her bridge crew. This is what we trained for. If the Concordat chooses war, we give them a battle they'll never forget. Not for victory. We're still outmatched. But to demonstrate that conquering Earth would cost more than the Concordat is willing to pay. Wade nodded grimly. The independent species strategy. Exactly, Chen confirmed. We make ourselves too costly to conquer. On the indomitable will, the human message triggered immediate confusion. What does she mean, Admiral? Questioned Sub-Admiral Krell. Our scans confirm they possess only one warship. Zexthal's compound eyes narrowed. Scan the system again. Full spectrum. Admiral, the sensor officer reported moments later. We detect no other vessels or defensive platforms with capabilities matching the Perseverance. Science Director Niv Zora's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. If they can hide one ship from our sensors, they could hide others, Zexthal finished. Tactical reassessment immediately. As the deadline approached, Earth's governments prepared their populations for potential conflict while continuing diplomatic efforts. Secretary General Okafor addressed the United Nations. Today we stand united as never before. If the Concordat chooses peace, humanity will gladly join the galactic community as equals. If they choose war, we will defend our home with every resource at our disposal. Admiral Zexthal watched the broadcast with growing unease. These humans showed none of the fear or division that typically preceded successful integration. Instead, they displayed a unity of purpose that reminded him uncomfortably of the four species that had successfully resisted the Concordat. "Admiral," Niv Zora interrupted his thoughts, "we've completed our tactical reassessment based on the assumption of hidden human capabilities." "And," he prompted, "if they possess even 10 vessels with capabilities matching the Perseverance, strategically positioned, the casualty projections are concerning." Zexthal chittered thoughtfully. The Council had ordered standard integration protocols, but they hadn't witnessed the humans' technological prowess firsthand. They hadn't seen how a single kinetic projectile had neutralized a Concordat vessel. They hadn't considered the possibility that humans might have developed their technology along fundamentally different lines. "Prepare a priority communication to the Council," he ordered. "Include all data on human technological capabilities and tactical assessments. Request flexibility in implementation of integration protocols." It was unprecedented, an admiral questioning the Council's judgment. But these humans were unprecedented as well. As the final hours of the ultimatum ticked away, both sides prepared for either breakthrough or battle, each hoping their preparations would prove unnecessary. As the deadline approached, the Concordat fleet arranged itself into an attack formation that had successfully subjugated hundreds of worlds. Admiral Zexthal felt a strange emotion, something approaching sorrow, as he prepared to order the annihilation of such a promising species. The Council's response to his request for flexibility had been terse. "Proceed with standard integration. Any deviation will be considered insubordination. Begin the bombardment sequence," he commanded, mandibles clicking in resignation. "Energy signatures detected," cried the sensor officer. "Multiple sources. 57. No, 63 separate signatures activating throughout the system." The tactical display transformed as dozens of small, Perseverance-like weapon platforms decloaked simultaneously, each positioning itself to target key systems on the Concordat vessels. They had been hidden in plain sight all along, waiting. "Impossible," whispered Niv Zora. "Their entire system is defended." On the Perseverance, Captain Chen directed the Symphony of Warfare with the enhanced perception granted by Chemera. Through the neural interface, she simultaneously commanded dozens of platforms with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. "Target weapon systems only," she instructed the collective defense network. "Disable, don't destroy." Across the void, precisely aimed kinetic projectiles streaked toward the Concordat ships. Each round struck with surgical precision, disabling weapons arrays without causing catastrophic damage or casualties. Within 3 minutes, 15 of the 17 Concordat vessels had been effectively neutered, their main weapon systems rendered inoperable by attacks they couldn't defend against. Admiral Zexthal gripped his command podium as the Indomitable will shuddered under impact. Unlike the other vessels, the flagship's reinforced armor had prevented complete weapons failure, but 3 of its 5 main batteries were offline. "Status report," he demanded. 15 vessels reporting critical weapons systems failure. The tactical officer responded, voice trembling. 2 vessels, including our own, retain partial offensive capabilities. No casualties reported on any vessel. They're deliberately avoiding lethal strikes, Niv Zora observed. Targeting weapons only. Zexthal's compound eyes narrowed. These humans weren't just technological innovators. They showed strategic restraint even when holding the advantage, a rare quality among emerging species. "The mathematics of war have changed, Admiral," came Captain Chen's transmission. "We don't need to match your numbers. We just need to understand your weaknesses." Chen's face on the view screen showed neither triumph nor aggression, only firm resolve. "As you can see, we could have destroyed your vessels rather than simply disabled them. Consider this demonstration proof that conquest of Earth would exact a price the Concordat may find unacceptable." The bridge of the Indomitable will fell silent as the implications sank in. The Concordat had never encountered a species so thoroughly prepared for their arrival. "You knew we were coming," Zexthal realized aloud. These defenses, they were prepared in advance. Chen's expression remained neutral. We detected your scout vessels 3 years ago, Admiral. While your civilization expanded outward, humanity prepared for the day we would encounter other species, not all of whom might be friendly. Impossible, Sub-Admiral Krell interjected. Our scout vessels employ the highest stealth protocols, yet insufficient against our detection systems, Chen countered. Admiral, the Concordat has grown accustomed to technological superiority. That assumption no longer applies. Zexthal considered his options. Standard protocol dictated escalation, calling for reinforcements, deploying planetary bombardment from a safe distance. But the humans had demonstrated the ability to neutralize Concordat vessels with precision strikes from hidden platforms. How many more remained concealed, waiting? What do you propose, Captain Chen? He finally asked. A ceasefire, effective immediately, Chen responded, followed by genuine diplomatic negotiations. Earth will not join the Concordat as a subject world, but we are open to alliance or treaty relations as equals. The Council will not accept such terms, Zexthal stated. Then perhaps the Council requires new information, Chen suggested. I believe you now have compelling evidence that standard integration protocols are inadequate for our species. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in what his officers recognized as rare amusement. Indeed, Captain. Very compelling evidence. The battle that wasn't. A simultaneous strike that disabled but didn't destroy an entire Concordat fleet would force a reassessment of humanity's place in the galactic order. Whether that reassessment led to peace or escalation remained to be seen, but Earth had certainly made its position clear. 3 days later, Captain Chen stood in the Perseverance's newly constructed conference chamber, watching as Admiral Zexthal ducked his towering frame through the doorway adapted for his species. The Concordat representative's compound eyes reflected the stars visible through the transparent viewport. In 900 cycles of expansion, the Admiral said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into smooth English, the Concordat has never signed a treaty of equals with a single system species. Chen smiled. There's a first time for everything, Admiral. The treaty before them recognized humanity's sovereignty, while establishing protocols for cultural and technological exchange. The Concordat would gain access to human innovation in miniaturization and resource efficiency. Humanity would receive the star maps and faster-than-light drive specifications needed to join the galactic community. Secretary-General Okafor and representatives from Earth's major powers occupied one side of the conference table, while Concordat officials led by Admiral Zexthal sat opposite. The atmosphere remained tense but hopeful, the first true diplomatic exchange between humanity and an interstellar civilization. The Council remains displeased, Zexthal admitted quietly to Chen. This treaty contradicts thousands of cycles of tradition. Traditions evolve, Chen replied, as must the Concordat if it wishes to continue thriving in a diverse galaxy. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in what Chen had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. Your species achieved in isolation what most achieve only through conquest or assimilation, he observed. The Council fears what humans might become once unleashed upon the stars. They should, Chen replied honestly, but they should also consider what we might accomplish as allies rather than adversaries. As the various officials reviewed the final treaty language, Dr. Ramirez approached quietly with a data tablet. Captain, he whispered, we've completed our analysis of the Concordat database. Those 4 deferred acquisition species I mentioned. We have their coordinates and basic information. Chen nodded almost imperceptibly, keeping her expression neutral. File that under classified intelligence, Doctor. Earth will honor its treaty with the Concordat, but prudence suggests making contact with other independent species sooner rather than later. Alliances, Ramirez asked. Insurance, Chen corrected. The Concordat has accepted our terms today, but centuries of conquest aren't forgotten overnight. We need to understand the complete galactic picture. The signing ceremony proceeded with the gravity such a historic moment deserved. As the Admiral pressed his appendage into the biometric signature plate, finalizing the agreement, Chen felt the weight of responsibility settle more firmly on her shoulders. Humanity had won its independence, but also thrust itself into a complex interstellar political landscape it barely understood. As the Concordat delegation prepared to depart, modified terms ensuring their compliance with the treaty, Admiral Zexthal approached Chen one final time. "Your defense platforms," he said. "How many more remain hidden throughout your system?" Chen smiled enigmatically. "That information remains classified, Admiral. A species should maintain some mysteries, don't you agree?" The Admiral's translator conveyed what might have been a chuckle. "Indeed, Captain Chen. The Concordat underestimated humanity once. We shall not make that mistake again." He paused. "When your species begins to explore beyond your system, you will find the galaxy complicated. Not all civilizations are as adaptable as the Concordat." "A warning?" Chen asked. "Information," Zexthal clarified. "Perhaps even advice, from one who has seen many worlds rise and fall." His compound eyes studied her carefully. "Humanity's path will be unique, I suspect. The Council fears this. I find myself curious to observe it." As the Concordat fleet departed, modified to ensure compliance with the treaty terms, Chen returned to the Perseverance's bridge. The experimental warship, now a symbol of humanity's unexpected entry onto the galactic stage, awaited its next mission. "Plot a course for Earth," she ordered. "We have a debriefing with the United Defense Council." Commander Adams approached with a question in his eyes. "And after that, Captain?" Chen smiled, her gaze drawn to the stars displayed on the view screen. "After that, we prepare for our next mission. Earth has announced its presence to the galaxy. Some will welcome us, others will fear us. We need to be ready for both." The stars ahead seemed to shimmer with possibility as the Perseverance's engines hummed to life. First contact had been tense, but humanity had proven itself capable of standing among the stars. The real journey was just beginning.